All right, let's talk about it. The one section of the ACT that makes even the most confident students start to sweat, the science test. It just feels like this insane race against the clock, right? It's packed with these super dense charts and complicated experiments and questions that honestly seem like they're designed just to trick you.
I mean, if your stomach just drops when you look at a sample science section, you are definitely not alone. There's this huge anxiety that you're about to be quizzed on every single science class you've ever taken all at once.
And that leads to the number one question that everybody asks. Do I seriously have to be a science genius to pass this thing? It's a totally valid fear, but here's the good news. That fear is based on a complete misunderstanding of what the test is all about. And today, we're going to debunk that myth for good.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to expose the big myths about the ACT science test. Then, I'm going to let you in on the secret to cracking it. After that, we'll dive into the 3 skills you actually need so that by the end of this, you'll have a completely new way of looking at it.
Okay, so first things first, the myth. The single biggest mistake you can make is trying to cram your brain full of biology, chemistry, and physics facts. This test isn't about whether you've memorized the periodic table. It's designed to see how you think.
And that brings us to the big secret. The ACT science section isn't really a science test. Nope, it's a reasoning test that's just dressed up in a lab coat. You got to think of it more like a puzzle. And you know what? Every single puzzle has a solution.
And here it is, the whole thing. It's a trick. But the best part is, once you see the trick, you can't unsee it.
This right here, this is the idea that changes everything. Just let this sink in. Your job is not to learn science. Your job is to recognize the skill being tested. Every question is built to test one of just a few key thinking skills, and all the information you could possibly need is right there on the page.
So how does this actually work? Let's get into our first skill, read the data. For a minute, forget about being a scientist. Your new job is to be a data detective, and you're looking for very specific clues.
So, when you see a table, your mission is surgical. The question will point you to a specific row and a specific column. Your job is to go there, get the number, and get out. Don't waste a single second trying to understand the whole table. Just find that one piece of evidence you need to answer the question. You have to remember, the people who make this test aren't trying to hide the answer from you. They're testing how efficient you are. Can you follow directions and find information when you're under pressure? The evidence is always right there in front of you. So on test day, this is going to be your mantra for any question with a table. Before you bubble in an answer, ask yourself, which value from this table answers the question directly? If you can't point to a specific number that proves your answer, it's probably wrong. All right, skill number 2 is spot the trend. This is where we zoom out a little bit from those individual numbers and start looking at the big picture, which is usually on a graph. Here, your job is to find the overall relationship. You know, as one thing goes up, what does the other thing do? Does it go up too? Does it go down? Does it stay the same? But, and this is a big but, be super careful with predictions. Guessing a value between 2 points on the graph, that's called interpolation, and it's pretty safe. But guessing a value beyond the graph, extrapolation, that's almost always a trap. You have to stick to what the data actually shows you. Don't get lost in the weeds looking at 1 or 2 weird data points. Focus on the overall pattern. Is the line generally going up? Is it flat? Is it curving down? That general shape is almost always what the test is asking about. And here's your mental check for this skill. For any question about a graph, just ask yourself, is this trend I'm seeing actually supported by the visual evidence of the graph? If you can't see the pattern on the screen, don't pick that answer. And that brings us to our final core skill, find the variables. This is your key to quickly making sense of those super dense passages that describe some complex experiment. You don't need to understand the science. You just need to figure out what the scientists were actually doing. And you know what? It almost always boils down to just these 3 things. You look for the one thing the scientist changes on purpose. That's your independent variable. Then you find what they measure to see what happened. That's your dependent variable. And everything else, the normal version they compare it to, that's the control. That is the basic setup for pretty much every experiment on this test. So to cut through all that confusing text, just ask yourself this. What did they change and what did they measure? The thing they changed is your independent variable. The thing they measured is your dependent variable. If you can find those 2 things, you've just unlocked the whole experiment. See, by focusing on these skills, you completely change the game. The ACT science section stops being this scary, intimidating thing, and it turns into a predictable, solvable puzzle. You're no longer a stressed out student, you're basically a code breaker.
So here it is, your whole strategy boiled down to 3 simple steps. For any passage you get, you're either going to be 1, pulling a specific number from a table, 2, spotting a general trend on a graph, or 3, figuring out the structure of an experiment. That's it. That's the entire playbook.
So, the next time you open up that practice booklet, don't see a science test. See a series of puzzles that are just waiting for you to solve them. You don't need to be a genius. You just need to know what you're looking for. So, ready to see the test differently?